Hello everyone, welcome back to Touch the Fire Twice. I'm Joshua and I'm here today to do an in-depth sniff review of the latest release from LAFCO New York's limited holiday 2024 collection, and that is Absinthe Plum. But first, if you're new to Touch the Fire Twice, welcome. My mission here is to share my love and passion for fine home fragrance as an enthusiast, an educator, a reviewer, to inspire you to increase your own fragrance knowledge and understanding, ultimately enhancing the scent memories that you create. If you want to learn more about what I do, why I do it, and how I do it, you can check out my website at TouchTheFireTwice.com, and do give me a follow over on Instagram, also at TouchTheFireTwice. But for now, let's dig into Absinthe Plum. And if you're familiar with my channel, you'll know that when it comes to my luxury candle reviews, the way I like to do this is a full unboxing to understand what is the luxury experience, what is the aesthetic of the candle, what is the brand sharing with us, review the brand's scent story and what they want the candle to evoke, what mood, moment, memory, space, place, or time are they trying to bring to us, get my nose on it to give you my assessment, what I think of it, spend some time talking about the actual performance of the candle, the wick, the wax, the strength, the throw, projection, performance overall of getting that fragrance out of the vessel, up into the air and into our noses to create those scent memories. And what I like to do when we have a true, master perfumer fine home fragrance blend is dig through all of the notes, the top, middle, bottom notes, anywhere from 8 to 12 notes, to understand exactly what they are, what are their origins, what do they smell like, do we know exactly what cardamom is, what's the difference between cedarwood and sandalwood, what does absinthe smell like in fine fragrance, so that we really understand what we're sniffing, what we're smelling, so we can kind of build that fragrance in our mind's eye to understand what it is and what we like. So let's dig right in. So this is one of 4 candles in LAFCO's limited holiday 2024 collection. There's also woodland spruce, white maple bourbon, a limited holiday packaging edition of their fantastic Feu de Bois candle, which, by the way, I will be doing a side-by-side comparison review of the Diptyque Feu de Bois compared to the LAFCO Feu de Bois candle, because many brands do have their variation of that sort of burning wood fragrance. And so I will be doing a comparison video of those two and digging into really what does the Feu de Bois fragrance evoke in early 2025. Getting into this, I do love the aesthetic, the branding here. It's so festive. We've got this metallic red packaging with just the gold sparkles all throughout. We've got the scent story on the back there. And as I always say with LAFCO, they really have some of the best packaging and vessels in the industry. When it comes to, these are their big 15.5 ounce signature candles. It's unlikely that I'll be able to burn through the entire fragrance in a season, especially when it comes to a holiday fragrance, when I'm burning so many different candles. But this is a wonderful box. There's some padding in there. When you close this heavy candle is going nowhere. It stacks well in storage, just really good visual and actual practical usage. And opening this up, let's get into the vessel. They always have the best vessels, and the holiday collection is no exception. For their holiday collection, of course, there's the green for the woodland spruce, a creamy white for the white maple bourbon, I think a gray for the Feu de Bois, and this bright cranberry red for the plum absinthe. And as you see here, they have this gold sparkly mica throughout there, so it's just so pretty when it's sitting here, and certainly when you have the flames flickering through, it just creates a really pretty visual. As I said, this is their 15.5 ounce single wick candle. They also have their classic, which is a 6.5 ounce. They use a soy wax blend with just a touch of paraffin, as paraffin is lighter and helps the fragrance molecules get into the air and into our noses just a bit easier than the dense soy wax. And they use 100% cotton wicks. The brand story is a sparkling winter fete imbued with the glow of the holidays. Ripened black plum takes on a spiced decadence with mandarin zest, mulled blackberry, and aromatic artemisia, and robed in creamy sandalwood and brandy. Notes of cinnamon and cardamom add an intoxicating, smoky warmth. Within that, the primary 3 notes that they share are black plum, artemisia, and sandalwood. Now, artemisia is a large family of aromatic plants. Things like tarragon are in there, mugwort, and wormwood, and that is famously used to flavor things like vermouth and also absinthe, thus the name plum absinthe. Getting my nose on this, immediately, this is both velvety and sweet. And you think of plum, you could describe that as velvety and sweet. You think of sandalwood, also could be described as velvety and sweet. Add in a syrupy aspect from the plum, and then a creaminess from the sandalwood. And it's really balanced with a brightness from the mandarin zest, as well as a bit of bright pepperiness from ginger. And then a dash of a warm spice from cinnamon, as well as cardamom. And the cardamom kind of plays 2 sides, a bit of spiciness, but then also a green aspect, which along with the artemisia is going to add sort of a green herbal sharpness to cut through the bright richness of the plum and creamy woodiness of the sandalwood. I'd say blackberry and blackcurrant both add a bit more of a bright fruitiness, but a real tart side of fruit, so not overly sweet. You're getting sweetness really from the plum. And then brandy, which is in the base, kind of brings a festive flair of, think, dried or candied fruit, and really some additional woodiness alongside that sandalwood. So it is very much a festive candle. I wouldn't say it screams holiday in the sense that it's not forward focused on some of the more obvious holiday fragrances we think of out there, but it is absolutely seasonal with that plum, some tart fruits, some spices, festive additional woodiness from the brandy. Dark, mysterious, woody, spicy, but a balance of a seductive, syrupy, sweet plum with those brights that you get from mandarin and the ginger, and frankly, the blackcurrant and the blackberry as well. Just a really pretty expression of plum. For me, this is, as the name states, name and primary note, it is exceedingly plum forward, but in a way that is unique. I've actually reviewed some other plum fragrances in the past. You can see this video here of sort of what is plum, and there were 5 or 6 candles that I reviewed that were plum forward. This is probably my favorite. This was not in that video, obviously, but of those, because it is not leaning autumnal, which for me, plum sometimes can seem a bit autumnal, or oftentimes it comes out in autumn fragrances. This very much is a festive, think winter, think holiday fragrance. Doesn't lean fall, though of course it wouldn't be inappropriate to burn outside of winter. And that is the thing also with LAFCO, I'll say, and I mentioned this in my review on their pumpkin seed candle, is that though these are appropriate for the seasons that they're released in as their limited editions, they really are not inappropriate almost year round. If you love this fragrance, it wouldn't be out of place burning it during festive times throughout the year, or frankly, anytime you want to have that escape, go to that mood, moment, memory, space, place, or time that this candle brings for you. So it's really beautiful. LAFCO really has these sophisticated blends that, as I often say, kind of sound like a broken record at this point. You're not going to find a scent that smells just like this at another brand. A lot of brands will do their variation on something. Frankly, think Feu de Bois. Of course, LAFCO has a Feu de Bois, as do many brands, always their own variation. But this fragrance specifically, I've yet to find something that really smells close to this when it comes to that balance of a sandalwood, artemisia, and this beautiful dose of plum. If you want a fresh, bright, slightly woody, fruity fragrance for the holidays, this is a great bet. Now let's talk performance. I will say this is a powerhouse in the sense that if I have this sitting on my end table, 8 feet from me, unlit, I will get whiffs and wafts of it for hours. I don't get nose blind to it, even unlit. This is a strong candle and certainly stronger when lit. Because it is a single wick candle with a fairly wide diameter in a primarily soy wax blend, it does have some struggling at times pooling out. And I say this is the case for nearly all luxury candles or single wick candles in general, is that oftentimes they're going to need something to help them get that full pool across, at least on the first couple of burns, or even in the beginning of subsequent burns. Usually for me, that is just a strip of foil wrapped around, create a bit of a cover, hold in that heat, gets that full pool, take it off, and you have a powerhouse with a nice, healthy depth of wax pool, getting those fragrance molecules up in the air. I did that my first couple of burns with this, and then I just wanted to see if I didn't use that sheath, what would happen. And unfortunately, it did tunnel quite a bit here, as you can see. This is probably after maybe 3 hours or so, it was unable to reach the full pool. And I didn't let it go too deep down there because I want to be able to correct this. And when I put foil on it again, it will correct itself. But it is disappointing that this is something you have to deal with, because I love to give these as gifts. They're really my favorite brand to gift because I love the fragrances and they're so beautiful, and these vessels can be reused. Like, imagine a big fat sangria in this glass would be incredible, right? But it's tough because then you kind of have to say, hey, make sure you might have to put a little thing on this, do this, but it's worth it, which is all true. But I wish there was a way to either get a different blend of wax, or maybe a second wick, or just a slightly different shape to the vessel. You don't want it to be too narrow, because the idea of getting a strong throw is the more surface area you have, the more fragrance molecules will get into the air. So you don't want something narrow, but the wider you get, the harder it does get to pull out. So that is the true one and only negative I have for this, is that I wish I'd be able to get a healthy pool without needing any additional assistance with that. But as I said, really great strength throw projection. I didn't go nose blind to it when it was sitting on my end table for 2 days unlit. It really is a beautiful powerhouse. Now let's get into these top, middle, and bottom notes. We start with mandarin zest, also known as clementine. That zestiness is instantly cheerful, sweet, fruity, citrusy with notes of honey or neroli. They say it is not as fresh as lemon or lime, but with more character than your traditional orange. Then we move into cinnamon. So that is really a key smell of the holidays of Christmas. A warm, dry, powdery spiciness, sweet freshness to start, spicy, enticing, comforting. There are two primary types of cinnamon used, either your cassia cinnamon, which is going to be sort of that spicy red hot cinnamon, the less complex of the two, or your traditional true Ceylon cinnamon, complex and fragrant with a bit of a citrusy overtone, lighter, mildly spicy sweet, just a true delicious cinnamon. Not sure which one is in here. It could go either way. Cinnamon is not a primary player in this, though it is a top note. It just adds a bit of that spicy depth. Then we move into black plum. So of course, most of us know plums are that stone fruit, purple, reddish, or yellow when ripe. They likely originated in Iran, and there are well over 400 varieties of plum. The taste can range from tart to sweet. The skin itself is going to be particularly tart and tannic. And in fine fragrances, it's going to give that velvety, sweet, fruity, gourmand fragrance with floral and syrupy facets. It's richer than other stone fruits and can almost lean toward dried fruits or sweet almond marzipan. Now getting into mulled blackberry. So in perfume, blackberry can have a sweet, fruity, tangy, sharp, or juicy scent. It really depends on the ripeness of the blackberry. So it can go from lusciously sweet to surprisingly sour. It's often used as a top note in perfumes to add a fruity, juicy note to soften heavier fragrances. Blackberry is slightly acidic, almost sometimes some woody or earthy nuances. Moving to black currant, that's going to bring a light, tangy, tart, fruity, woody note with almost an animalic edge, kind of cat urine edge to it. But it is an important note for creating green, minty, or fruity notes in perfumes. The berry itself adds a sweet, tart fruitiness. Digging into one of the stars of this candle, Artemisia, whether it is mugwort, tarragon, or likely in this case wormwood, which by the way is named for its ability to treat parasites, they're very bitter on the tongue, used to flavor vermouth and absinthe. So therefore, Artemisia absinthium is very green, sharp, bitter, and herbaceous fragrance element. LAFCO describes their version of Artemisia as having tea-like nuances, reminiscent of dried fruit, and that the herbaceous element lends a harmonizing contrast to gourmand and plum notes. Then we move into ginger, so bracing, uplifting, warm, spicy, nose-tingling sort of spicy. There's sometimes a fresh, borderline woody citrus on the top of ginger. Peppery heat, pungent, can be warm, sometimes even with a camphoraceous or lemon tone. Moving to cardamom. Cardamom seeds are warm, spicy, camphoraceous, almost medicinal at times. Think similar almost to eucalyptus, but it becomes more woody, sweet, and floral over time. And it is one of the main ingredients in masala chai, spiced tea. Our two bottom notes here, we've got sandalwood, also one of the stars of the show. So sandalwood brings a creamy sweetness, warm, smooth, sophisticated, woody, earthy, soft. Interestingly, santalum is not actually a tree itself, but a parasitic plant that grows by attaching itself to the roots of other trees, slowly growing as high as 10 meters. It produces a heavy, yellow, fine-grained, aromatic wood, woody with creamy, balsamic facets, bringing a sweet, textured richness. And then finally, brandy, distilled grapes, fermented in oak barrels. It can bring a vanilla aspect, candied fruit, raisin, apricot smell, a bit boozy, maybe tobacco leaves. It can be a bit nutty, woody, and can even have caramel, vanilla, cocoa, or leather notes to it. So those are our notes. Again, overall, really a beautifully strong plum-forward fragrance with that balance of the creamy, sweet sandalwood, velvety, velvety, velvety across the board, with the brightness thrown in from some of our other aromatics. Fan of this, fan of nearly all fragrances that come out of LAFCO, as you know if you've watched my channel for some time. The only, kind of tweak, what would I do to this if it were my blend, is I would perhaps add something, again, I don't want to go too on the nose with an obvious fragrance for the holidays, but I could see maybe, we've got the blackberry, we've got the black currant in there, we've got some of the fruitiness. I would say almost perhaps cranberry, not to make this heavy on the cranberry, you don't want to fight with the plum too much, but there is that tart, bright freshness that you get from a cranberry, and I could see perhaps that also bringing something that just makes it feel slightly more winter or holiday to me. That's perhaps my westernized nose thinking cranberry equals holidays, but I think that could be nice in here, but not to say that this is not a beautiful blend as it stands on its own. But I always like to have that little bit pull towards something, really love conceptual, but I like to land somewhere in the middle there. But if you're looking for a bright, festive, plum-forward fragrance, definitely check out Plum Absinthe from LAFCO. If you have any questions about this or other candles, please do let me know. And until next time, take care.